All right, we'll do general Q&A.
Well, cool. Well, for those who were not here for some of the previous panels this weekend, I'll give a real brief introduction. My name is Josh Grelle. I'm a voice actor for the last 14 years, actually, if this is how I've been making my living. Mostly in anime, some video games, commercials, like cartoons, and some other stuff along the way, but the vast majority of it has been living, breathing, eating, sleeping anime. And some of the roles you might know me from, popular Yuri Katsuki, Yuri Nice, Armin Arler to Attack on Titan, Sadao Mao as a part-timer, Akihisa Yoshi and Baka and Test, Yosuke and Princess Jellyfish, Tyrion and Ruby, Lithuania, Natalia, Nitori and Free, Kenichi and Kenichi the Mighty's Disciple. Oh my god, I can keep going. I'm upwards of about 300 characters now, over 14 years.
This is barely working anyway, so
screw it. I don't need you! Also worked for about anywhere from, it was like 6 to 8 years as an ADR script writer for a couple companies, primarily Funimations. My favorite of the shows that I got to be a part of for the dub writing was Fairy Tail. I got to write a really good chunk of Fairy Tail. And the massive online multiplayer, and called Yggdrasil. The game was online for like 12 years, and in the first episode, it's the last day of the game being live. They're going to take it offline, and the main character, Momon, is sitting in his guild hall that he and all of his friends created over the years, and they pretty much became the top dogs of this MMO. The cool thing about their guild is that not only are they kind of like role players and stuff, like you have to have a specific type of character to be part of their guild, which is you have to be a monster. You cannot be a human of any kind. You have to be some sort of monster, whether that's like a slime monster, a goblin, a demon, and whatever. And Momon basically just looks like a giant living skeleton wearing mage robes. And it's the last night of the servers going down. All of his guildmates have left. Some of them quit the game forever ago, but he stayed and he made sure that the guild hall prospered, and he kept other players from attacking it, and like all sorts of, like this game was his life. And so he's staying up, he's logged in, and it's all like virtual stuff. So he sees that guards their guild hall start speaking to him. He's like, "What's wrong, master?" Or it's doing something along those lines, Lord Momonga. And so all of a sudden now he's been transported into the world. He's lost his human body completely. He is now an actual undead skeleton. And since the theme of their guild was basically monsters and demons and stuff like that, all of the NPCs that served them are also monsters and demons and stuff like that, and they live by monster and demon codes. So Momonga, in order to play the part, he essentially has to roleplay in order to keep the NPCs on his side. Roleplays as this, I love it. His mental mind just sounds like a nerd, but when he's roleplaying, he sounds like this. He sounds like this all-powerful overlord. Hence the name of the title. And he decides that in order, he wants to find out if he's actually the only player that has been sent to this world. And so he decides, well, maybe the best way to get the word out there and everything is to conquer this world. So he sets out to become the actual overlord of this new fantasy world, and it is one of my favorites. They just finished season 2. They're about to start season 3. The manga is also fantastic if you're more of a manga fan. But highly recommend it if you are a fan at all of the MMO genre or the character going to another world or game world genre. Which is funny because we got so many of those things for a while. Shonen Jump now tells mangaka in Japan, we will not publish any stories about young men going to another world. Basically, no more shonen stories about people being transported to another world. It's been done to death. We will not print it.
It's one of those cliches that are overused.
At this point now. I think once we had Konosuba, once we had a show that made fun of that genre, we reached the point where the genre is done to death. But yeah, highly recommend it more. But yeah, there's all sorts of. I've been doing this for now for like 14 years. I've been very fortunate to be a part of a lot of incredibly cool, sometimes very not necessarily controversial, but some I think shows that are. And you've been here for my panels this week, and you know what I'm talking about. Like shows that are just very important in terms of giving people hope and representation. We're getting a lot more shows like that, both from anime and from just kind of shows here in the States. And I've been very fortunate to be a part of a few of those shows like Princess Jellyfish or Snow White with the Red Hair or Yuri on Ice. And I really hope that we start to see more shows like that get made. Anyway, that's kind of my not short introduction. So we have, this is just a general Q&A, so if you have any pressing questions that are just on the tip of your mind right now, feel free to go ahead and raise your hand. Yes?
I was wondering if you feel more pride in characters you voice or shows you
More pride in characters I voice or shows I've written. I don't think it's really one way or the other. I feel like there are certainly characters that I've voiced that I'm more proud of, or I feel are more important to like my career overall. Like I have a list of 5 characters basically that always like it's always changing. As more shows come along, or whatever, or something. If a character like really means something to me at the time that I do it, or it represents a milestone in my career, or I got some really cool interactions with fans as a result of playing a character or something. So right now, the list of 5 or top 5 characters is Kenichi, Demani's Disciples, in the first show for Funimation ever, kind of the fanboy dream come true. Princess Jellyfish. Also, just kind of like it came around at a really cool time for me when we were doing nothing but fan service shows, and I kind of got burned out. So it was really cool to get to do a show that was such a breath of fresh air, like Princess Jellyfish. And then Armin, Attack on Titan. My fandom kind of came full circle. I was on Toonami where my fandom really started, and instead of growing up, and so it's like now it's like I'm on TV, mama. Yuri on Ice. I felt it was an incredibly important show, not just because the Japanese took a risk and put out an original story that wasn't based on an already popular manga or something. We just kind of went with it, and it ended up really paying off. But the show itself, I felt, was just really important. And lastly, the Grand Minister, Grand Priest from Dragon Ball Super, because I grew up watching Dragon Ball. It was kind of my first real anime love, other than like Sailor Moon or Slayers. And now I'm stronger than Goku. So, yes! And I never have to power scream. So, yes.
I actually have 2 questions, if that's okay.
Yeah. Actually, before you ask, I just realized I didn't completely answer your question. So, other than those characters, there are definitely shows I've written, like Overlord, for example, that I'm incredibly proud of, because it was a show that I was a fan of kind of before we had a chance to write it. I specifically requested if I could be the writer for the show, and they gave me the lead writer position for it, basically. So not only was I in charge of the whole project, but I had 2 other writers under me that I had to also check their work and make sure that everything. So like I was, for a small time, I was kind of I was a administrator for an anime in terms of writing what the English-speaking audience would see, and I was really proud of all the work we did on it. I think it's some of my best work, totally. And then also I have some things like, there are some moments in Seraph at the End, there's some moments in Castletown Dandelion, and Tokyo Ghoul. Like, I got to write the first 2 episodes with Tatum's character in Tokyo Ghoul, oh god, what's his freaking name? Skioma, thank you. It's very over-the-top Epicurean cannibal, basically, but he's just so beautifully verbose and eloquent in the way that he presents his thoughts and everything to the world and stuff. So the fact that it was like, I knew that Tatum was going to play him, I was like, I'm going to write a script for Tatum, basically, and it was some of my best writing. So yeah, I do have pride in some of the shows that I've written. I have a lot of pride in some of the shows I've voiced, but I can't really say for sure that I have more pride in one than the other at this point. I definitely would say that acting is what I'm known for. I'm not known for being a writer. I'm known for being a voice actor. So I'm invested more in the voicing of characters than I was in writing, which is why I was okay with losing the job. Yes, now your questions. I'm so sorry. Now your questions.
My first question. For Yuri and I season 2, how do you think it's gonna go?
I would like to see Yurio and Odebek. Like, actually, it's just like I would like to see, but because here's the deal. If there is a season 2, or if they decide to cover this in another movie, because we know that the first movie is going to be about Victor's backstory, basically, from the looks of it. So, yeah, for those who didn't know, there's a movie. It's been officially announced. Finally, they just haven't given us a date, but it looks like it's going to be Victor's backstory. If there is a season 2 or another movie, I would like 2 things to happen. I want it to be about pair skating. Because that sequence at the end of the first season was just, oh my god, do a whole season about that, please! And secondly, because while Yurio achieved what he wanted in a technical fashion, in terms of, as far as like technical score goes and just how he did for the Grand Prix final, he achieved his dream. He achieved his goal. He got the goal. He won. He did that thing. But he didn't find his agape. He didn't find the art in it for him. And you can kind of see that in his reaction, where it's just like, yeah, he pushed himself to his absolute physical limit, but he still didn't feel it. And I feel like Odebek, which is kind of the way that they're setting those two up, that I don't know if they're necessarily going to have the same relationship as like Victor and Yuri do. Because to me, Victor and Yuri's relationship is also supposed to represent Eros. It's that sexual love. But he's looking for agape. Don't you giggle on me. I mean, that's the whole point of it. Is he's finding that, and Victor is trying to bring that out of him because he realized when he first saw Yuri and Yurio, when he assigns them the Eros and agape thing in the first place, Victor sees as a teacher, he sees that Yuri's problem is lack of self-confidence. Well, what makes someone feel confident faster than basically being a walking, talking sex icon? It's like, what brings confidence out more than just being confident when it comes to your own sexuality and everything? So he tried to get Yuri to find that aspect so that he could start to actually form that confidence again. Yurio, on the other hand, he's got that down. He's fine there, but he doesn't open himself up to anybody. He doesn't open himself up to his own feelings, and that's what Victor wanted him to find, and he didn't find it. I feel like Odebek is going to be the one that allows him to actually open up and make himself vulnerable to other people's feelings and his own feelings, whether that comes in the form of a very loving friendship or a relationship like what Yuri and Victor has, who's to say? But either way, I feel like that is the thing that's going to make Yurio start to find his agape. It's just the simple thing of having a friend, because he doesn't have it, and that's what I hope we see. And I feel like if they do a pair skating thing, that is what's really going to force him to open himself up, because he's going to have to work in tandem with another skater to create this thing, to create this artwork, not just his own thing. And that's going to be, I think, going to be a real challenge for him. So I'm really looking forward, and I hope that that's what they do. And obviously, I hope that Yuri and Victor, we still get to see what the next challenge of their relationship is. So yeah, that's what I want. What was your second question?
I grew up, since you just talked about Dragon Ball Z, I grew up listening, watching Dragon Ball Z, the old stuff.
Yeah.
Back in Toonami.
Yeah.
Back when I was just a little kid and I was allowed to watch it.
Same here.
What do you think of the new Dragon Ball Z?
The Super?
Super and the Z. I've seen parts of it, and I'm like, to me, it doesn't have the same pizzazz as I once did when I watched the old stuff.
Right.
When I watched the old stuff, it grabbed my attention. I wanted to see more. I wanted to see what happened.
Right.
To me, now it's like, I don't know what's happening right now.
Mhm.
It's just all kind of like jumbled to me.
Really? I don't know. I haven't had that impression myself. For me, I really enjoy the aspect that we have at Dragon Ball that Toriyama is actually has a hand in again, as opposed to GT, which we shall never speak of again. And it's cool that, you know, at first I kind of rolled my eyes when I found out that another movie that's coming out early next year was going to be another Broly movie. But this is the first time, yet again, that Toriyama will have his hand with that character. We're going to get a whole new, Broly will be canon now, as opposed to being, because none of the Dragon Ball Z movies were canon. None of them actually took place necessarily within proper timelines. They were never considered to be actual Dragon Ball Z truth. They were just little what-ifs. But now that Toriyama, like, the first time we ever had an actual Dragon Ball movie that was considered canon was Battle of the Gods, because it was essentially just a movie version of the story they were going to tell in the series anyway. Same with Resurrection F. I think that there's still a lot of the spirit of the original Dragon Ball Z in it, especially now that Toriyama is kind of at the reins again. We still have Toriyama's vision. Obviously, that vision has changed a little bit since he last started, and that's going to happen. People grow, their ideas change, and we're not all necessarily going to agree with those changes. But to me, personally, I feel like it really did kind of feel like we just picked right back up where we left off. I love the fact that it's supposed to be taking place between the end of their fight with Boo and the fight with Oob at the tournament at the end of Z. So, like, all of this stuff that we're seeing now and whatever else they put in now, whatever new they add to Dragon Ball Super is all stuff that happens before the actual end of Dragon Ball Z that we're all familiar with. Which to me, and we still haven't seen Goku put on the blue shirt yet. The blue shirt and the yellow pants that we see him at the end of the series. So that makes me wonder, who's this next master gonna be? Is it still gonna be Whis? Is it gonna be the Grand Priest? Is it gonna, who knows? Like, I don't know. Like, and now that, and just in case you haven't seen the actual Super, like, subtitle, I won't say any spoilers, but the way they ended Super, they've left it wide open. And this movie that's come out, the Broly thing, like the Broly movie and whatever the movie is, it comes out in like December of this year, I think. If there is two movies, maybe it's just one. Whatever those movies are going to be are going to link everything else together and lead us into the next thing. So, at this point, I'm just excited and I'm looking forward to see where they take it next. I haven't... Dragon Ball before Z, the real spirit of that show was the tournaments. Like we always went back to see those tournaments, and that was kind of the where the ultimate battle would take place. Is, you know, in that last big one between Goku and Piccolo. So the fact that we're kind of getting back to that spirit of, like, in the Super, we have two tournaments, each one more important and with a lot higher stakes than the last one. But to me, that feels like we have kind of gone back to the original spirit of Dragon Ball, in that it's all about seeing how Goku and his friends work together, how strong they've become, and fighting not just for their own survival and everything, but also just for the fun of fighting in a tournament type setting. And so, like, that, to me, I feel like we're still in Dragon Ball land. It hasn't really deviated. Sorry for the long, convoluted answer. I hope that.
It's okay.
All right, cool. Yes.
Was it like difficult to become a voice actor? Was it difficult to become a voice actor because, like, the whole thing with, like, there only being a certain, like, people that do English stuff?
Mm-hmm. It's harder now. It's a lot harder now, I think, just because of simuldubs. Does anybody here not know what I mean by simuldubs? Okay. Simuldubbing means, basically for the last like 3 or 4 years, ever since we put out Space Dandy, if anybody saw that, on Toonami. Ever since we put out Space Standing, we've been doing what is called simuldubbing, which means we get the materials the same day or 2 weeks before the actual episode in Japan comes out. And then within a week, we have that episode dubbed up on Funimation's website. So there is no longer, like for the last 3 years, there has not, any show that Funimation has had, there is no months or years long gap between the Japanese release and an American DVD coming out. It's almost instantaneous now. So, I mean, right now, My Hero Academia, we're doing that. The day that the Japanese comes out is the day we put up the English dub. They come out the exact same time now. So we do that. The only problem is because of the pace at which we have to work in order to get these out on time now and meet demand, there's no time for directors to audition anymore. Most of the time, directors just have to figure out who they want and who they've used before that they know can play the characters, and it doesn't give a lot of chance for new people to come in. So I mean, now it's a lot harder for people to come in and just kind of wow them, because instead of getting an audition, you're usually tried out by doing bit parts in Walla first, and unless you're just really, really good, it's hard to get noticed in that situation. For me, I just got in at the right time. I think I started going for it before I graduated high school, back in like 2004. This was well before there really wasn't, the first generation of dub actors was still the primary people being used at that point. A lot of people hadn't made the move to try and break into it yet, and I think I was one of the first people to really like focus on like, I want to do voice work for anime. Not in like not to say it like I would only do anime voice work forever, but that's where I wanted to start, and I just kind of went after it, and it was equal parts just good timing, being at the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, and having a good attitude, and being easy to work with, and that's pretty much what allowed me to just continuously work, find new directors who would give me other chances, who would then introduce me to other directors, and the stuff would just keep on going until, voila, and 10 years later I'm on Toonami. Nowadays, though, it is a lot harder, and we haven't really figured out, it's still such a new process that we haven't quite figured out yet how to bring more new people in, but I mean, it does happen. I mean, Brittany Lauda, Alejandro Saab, Damon Mills, like those guys, they are kind of the new generation after my generation of voice actors that are coming in, and it's happening faster, and they're all relatively new, but those guys in particular are really already making a name for themselves there and kind of climbing the ranks, but I couldn't tell you what they're doing differently than I did or anything to make that work, so unfortunately, I can't really give you the best advice as to how to get into it now. Yes. And then we'll get over to you. Yeah, you too.
That question then, how would it work how do they make time for that if eventually everyone in your generation voice actors is going to retire or find something else, or if there just won't be enough people in that industry, and now there's no new people in, all of a sudden audition and train new people?
Right. And that's kind of, in a way, they're kind of at that point, and not that we're retiring, but that they are trying to get some new people in as often as they can. Most directors, like I said, the way they find time to try new people is with bit parts and Walla. And Walla is basically, it just means with all actors. It's anytime you've ever heard the background, like a character's at, like, let's say a soccer game, and you just hear a bunch of crowd cheering and individual, like little like hoops and hollers and cheers, that's Walla. So that's where they'll start with people. And really the most important thing they're looking for is can you perform with your voice? Can you take direction and follow through with it? And are you easy to work with? And the people, and have a good attitude too. So like, I feel like the people that show those things the most are the ones that get called back more often. And also, it also helps to have some acting experience. Most of the people that are coming into this, at least in theater for a couple of years, kids either in their high school career or early college career, or they just did community theater like me. My high school never offered acting classes of any kind. It was just football and church. So like, so I cut my teeth for close to 12, 13 years just doing community theater. That's where I got my start. And I wish that I had had a little more experience, some more formal training before I went in and started doing voice work, but just the fact that I had had that much experience and was confident in my ability to perform, and I knew how to perform, was what I think gave me an edge. So I think really the safest bet is not to worry about whether there's going to be a new, like a time for new people later down the road. If this is something that you want to pursue, because there's always going to be a new project, there's always going to be new anime, and
the industry's growing, people are faster, but the more they bring in, the more people they're going to need. If they can't audition, they're not going to have.
they'll find it. I mean, it happened. I mean, here's the deal. Like, if you're people like me and J. Michael Tatum and Monica Rial and Chris Sabat, Ian Sinclair, like these names that most people that watch anime dubs, or even if they don't watch dubs, they at least know our names in some capacity. There's another 600 actors in Dallas right now that are contracted and work for Funimation that no one's ever heard of. 600. Wow. And they've all worked for them. Some are good at it, some are not. But there at least is the opportunity for any one of those 600 people that have been living in Dallas and have been working for Funimation in some capacity to move up and get more roles and get noticed more. And it's not necessarily always that someone doesn't have the talent or is not easy to work with or something. It's also just the fact that your voice works against you. There's a lot of people that only have one type of voice, like a very specific style of voice. Anybody familiar with Brian Massey? Does anybody know that character name when I say that? Okay, I'm trying to think of something. Because he's in a lot of stuff for Funimation. It's just, he sounds like, his natural speaking voice sounds like someone who has chain smoked every day since they were 3. So like, it's just this very gruff but textured voice, and like, he plays a lot of like gruff, muscly dudes. He plays gangsters. He plays like fathers and stuff like that, whatever. But he doesn't play young heroes. He doesn't play like Gokus and stuff like that because his voice just doesn't fit for those archetypes. It's kind of the same thing as like in theater, like doing stage. I'm not going to be a lead romance dude in most theater plays because that's not what they look like in movies and plays. Like, you're very limited by your physical appearance when it comes to acting on stage. But with voice, whatever your voice can sound like, you can play. But there is the opposite of that. There is the flip side of that, whereas you could, if you just have one type of voice or just a very unique voice, it's going to be really hard to find characters that fit that. So like, it's not that those 500-600 people that have been working with them forever are just not good. They just have very particular voices. And that can be the case with anybody. You're awesome, thank you. Thank you. What time is it? 20, 30 minutes. I had a thought I was going to go to and then I lost it. If I remember it, I will come back to it. Okay. You had your hand up. I'll get back to you in a second. I want to try to get to everybody who has not had a chance to ask a question yet. So you first, and then we'll get over here, and you guys.
Comment and question. Comment when you said, focusing on Yuri on the 17th.
Right.
So have to change the title.
Exactly. Yeah, it is Yuri on Ice. So I mean, like, either way, whoever the focus is, it's still Yuri on Ice.
So you're right. But you mentioned doing the script for like Overlord.
Yeah.
That's it's one of those things that I don't know, just a closeted fan. I never heard that like you guys doing that.
Yeah.
Is it like translation? Is it just kind of adapting? How does that?
It's adapting.
Okay.
That's the best way to put it. It's adaptive script writing.
Okay.
But there is there is originality in it as well. I mean, like, we're not just sitting there and just taking a translation and making sure it fits, although that is part of the job. I'll kind of walk you through a breakdown real quick of the process of anime going from release in Japan to a dub release. Episode comes out, or it's about to come out in like 2 weeks, we get the materials. We have a team of subtitlers then, or actual like translators who are fluent in Japanese language and culture. Most of them are in fact Japanese who learned English and came to work for us. So they will translate the entire show. They'll also have the original Japanese script to look over and any notes from the creators as well. And then they create the translation that is then also turned into the subtitle version. The subtitles are then handed over to someone like me or one of the adapted script writers that is their only job. And at that point, I have a script that has been that has the translation, has the time codes. Which, do you know what a time code is?
That's when flags happen, or like.
Yes, in a way, yeah. So any time there's any sort of project, either animation or movie or whatever, before it's released, there's always a timestamp or a time code that's added to it, just in case there is ADR required. And it's always hour, minute, second, frame, and the frame goes up to like 25 usually. So someone, either myself or a script prepper, will go through the entire episode and write down for every single instance that a character talks, makes a sound, or there's group walla or stuff happening in the background or whatever. They write down who's talking, where they're talking, and what they're saying. And so they will go through, and usually this is about 300 to 500 individual cues per 23-minute episode. They will just go through and they write the little bitty time code, hour, minute, second, frame, for every single instance that someone talks. It takes them roughly 24 hours to a little over to get one script done. That's if they sit down and go nonstop until it's done. Then they hand it over to someone like me. Originally, when I first started, we had anywhere from a week to 2 weeks to completely adapt one 25-minute episode, which was awesome because we really had the chance to, if we weren't certain what what the Japanese are trying to get to toward in terms of translation, like if there was some sort of reference that they're making that we're not aware of or anything like that, we had the time to read the manga, watch the whole show, or do whatever in order to get those answers, and actually had time to contact the Japanese and be like, what is this? But now, we have 3 days. If not less. Well, we had 3 days before I lost my job, and they turned it in, and they took all of the writers that were contract and turned it into an in-house team. That went away. But now the people that they have working in there have upwards of about 14 hours to write one episode. So it's a very fast process now, and we don't have as much time to actually make the dubs, in my opinion, as quality as they used to be, but people just weren't willing to wait the amount of time that it would take to go from original Japanese release to a DVD release or an online release if we would wait until we had the entire show to watch, so that we made sure that we had all the information at hand. Now it's blind leading the blind. But we still end up making really good quality stuff. We've found our stride, it's just overwhelming. That said, I find that, sorry, again, lost my train of thought. Did I answer your question sufficiently? All right. You guys had some questions, then we'll come over here. Yes? Yeah.
So what was the experience like for you with having to go from a character like Yuri from Free to Yuza from Psychopaths? Like whether it be from like the personalities the characters are trying to portray and like the type of voices that you have to
Right. Going from voice to voice to voice isn't necessarily that hard. Did anybody not hear the question?
Yeah, I heard it.
You did? All right, cool. So basically she was asking, what's it like to go from a character like Nitori from Free to, say, Ginoza from Psychopaths? Like, in terms of, like, just different voices or personality changes and stuff like that. Going from voice to voice to voice isn't necessarily straining unless I'm doing several different ones a day in one day, and, like, all of them scream or are high energy, which was the case when I was recording Yuri. I had Yuri and 5 other lead roles at the same time, and all of them screamed everything. So like I lost my voice, and I was doing conventions and writing 2 scripts a week. So like I lost my voice and got sick to the point of like almost needing hospitalization like 4 times. Like while I was recording that. So it was interesting. But going from voice to voice is not necessarily that difficult. I mean, Mitsuri's and the personality and everything, like everything Mitsuri does is he's just really excited and he's so happy that Rin is gonna swim. Go swim, Rin! And it's just like I love you! It's just like oh my little ducky. It's just because everything with Rin is just is that passion and that he looks up to Rin as if he's this hero, he's his idol and everything, and so it's just very pure. I just get to be this pure little happy little girly boy, and I'm like, he's just so cute. He's my little ducky, and I love the episode when he comes in and they have him in a maid outfit, and I was just like, he's not allowed to be that cute. But then you go to like Ginoza and stuff, and really the only major change aside from I go from this to everything is right here. Like, it just goes to,
Victim's name is Daisuke Shioyama. He was murdered at 3 p.m. today when the robot he was servicing dismembered him. I hate my job.
Should we say that again? What? Oh, yeah.
Shogo Makashima.
I'm such trash for saying
Shogo Makashima!
Yes. My favorite though is Ginoza with the ponytail and the giant sniper rifle. Like that's my nominator. Do what?
I think we'll see more of that with the upcoming.
I'm hoping. Like, I just want, and then just the punch. Like,
I'll be fine with that.
just. For me, the hard part about Ginoza going to that character was that it was a much more emotionally draining character. Because I was playing one of the only characters in a show about having absolute control of your emotions. And I'm playing one of the only characters that actually does have control, except for anger. That's his primary emotion at all times, is anger. But he tries to keep it under wraps. So it's just always kind of simmering and boiling just under the surface, and so that's why he just kind of sounds like he constantly has a stick up his butt. But then as that season goes on, we understand more and more about why he has that anger and where it comes from and the struggles that he's going through daily, trying to keep his hue clear and in check and everything. And then ultimately the end of that first season, the end of his arc, where what happens. Yeah, it was rough, but also and it was such a great moment for him too, because it was like finally it took that moment and it took that heartbreak for him to finally realize that it wasn't worth fighting to keep his hue clear, and all of those bottled up emotions that I'd had to keep under the surface for an entire season came pouring out in one moment. So it was this really cathartic, but also until that point, it was a rough ride. And then kind of the same with some roles like Yuri. Yuri had a lot of very rough emotional stuff that he was going through, and then to put myself in that mental state in order to try to at least come by it honestly was very hard. But I mean, because who wants to constantly have in their mind, I'm worthless, I'm not doing anything, I'm not a good friend, it's like that's half the characters I play are kids that start with these feelings of just, I'm worthless, why am I trying, I'm no good, I'm not a good friend, any of these things. But they get to go through those arcs and they get to come out of it stronger on the other end. And so it's always, I've learned so many times now in my life that I don't need to be hard on myself because of playing characters that are always hard on themselves, and it sucks to be in that mindset. So I mean, really, that's the only real difference when going from voice to voice to voice. For the most, changing my voice is the easy part. It's telling the truth under imaginary circumstances that's the hard part. Yes.
Have you had any stories that were funny while recording any of your voice lines?
I I leave bombs for people fairly often. Does anybody know what that means or not know what that means? All right, a bomb is basically because we always record one at a time, one actor at a time for the dubbing process. If I go in first and I know that someone that I know is going to come in and record after me and I have a scene with them, when I'm recording my lines, I'll try to find a line that takes place just before they're supposed to talk. And instead of what's in the script, I'll put in something really nasty or obscene. And the more kid-friendly the show is, the worse the bomb is. Because no one's ever going to see it except the actor, the other actors. So I've gotten Jeremy Lee. That was the first one I ever got. I left a bomb for Jeremy Lee on Initial D. Does anybody know that show? Anybody familiar with Initial D? A couple people. All right. Did anybody see MMO Junkie earlier this year? A few people. Okay. No. Well, I guess I could do the MMO Junkie one. Because I actually have video on my phone. So, without giving any spoilers, I played a character in this show. Me and Terry Doty, who plays the female lead, and that's really who the show focuses on. Her name is Morioka. They're both hardcore MMO fans. They're in their 30s, one of them has a job, the other one left it because the corporate world of Japan was just too merciless and hardcore for her, and so she became a NEET and everything, and it's this really amazing slice of life show, about these two middle-aged gamers. And I was like, oh, finally a slice of life that I can identify with, and I really loved it, but because Terry Doty directed me on Baka and Test, and she constantly made, she would throw stuff at me. If I was getting booth loopy, I was just like, I have to get out! And I would open the door or whatever, she would throw a shark and be like, get back in that booth! And it's just we would play with each other a lot too, so it was, I had to take the opportunity when I could to stop her. So there's a scene in near third to last episode of the season where they've realized who each other are, and they've just gotten out of the rain, and they're in my apartment, and she's taking a shower, and they're both really nervous, and they're both really just because they're both virgins, and they're both they know that they're into each other, but they don't want to admit it or whatever. And so my character comes in while she's in the shower with some fresh clothes and a towel, and he's working up his nerves to finally say something. He just goes, hey, I've got some clean clothes for you, I hope they fit, I'm sorry. And then she's freaking out because she's in the shower and he's in there and she's not expecting it or whatever. It's just really cute scene. But I recorded first. So instead...
Can we shut the door?
No.
Are there children here?
There's nothing wrong. All right, cool. So yeah, it's just, I made this, and I made Clifford Chapin, who was directing, we couldn't record for 10-20 minutes after I did that because we were laughing so hard we were crying. I did not expect the fart noise that I made to actually sound that good, and it actually fit perfectly because he has this expression of his stomach is hurting or whatever. His expression could easily be taken that way. So I just went with it, and it didn't affect Terry at all. She just went right past it and recorded it normally. I was like, dang it, I have to get her. And then finally, the next episode, she's leaving. And Sakurai, my character, is like, okay, I can let her go. I can let her go. I won't do anything. And then finally, she's like, no, that's a mistake. I have to go after her. And then he opens the door. He's like, oh, Morioka, hey, I'll walk you home. But instead, this is what Terry hears. Hey, if you're a Jesus, let me tell you the good news. And that got her. That was good. So, yeah, I've had a few. Yeah, what was your
Question 2. How was recording in Pentelli? And if it was good and you enjoyed it, please let us know. And you answer this.
Okay.
And let us know when you get his voice.
Okay. see. I got to see a lot of the world. I got to hang out with my friend America in his house. He's so sweet. I brought him some tea. He really likes tea.
But then Russia took me home and he put me in the closet and he wouldn't let me come out of the closet. I just don't understand why I can't see the daylight anymore. Poland run! Russia's coming to that show! It's just... I really liked it.
Hang on just a second. You had not asked a question yet, and you had not asked a question. Yes, go ahead.
Is there a favorite character that you'd like to play?
Uh-huh. Is there a favorite character that I like to play?
Yeah.
Okay, I have 5. I can't just pick one. I mean, they're my children's. I can't have a favorite, except for Timmy, because he brings me cookies. I have 5, and they're all, it's the same list that I gave her at the beginning of the panel. It's alternating because of, like, another character comes along that's either really important to me, or important to the fans, or it represents a milestone in my career. So right now, those characters are Kenichi, the Mighty Disciple, Kurinosuke from Mrs. Jellyfish, Armin Arler from Attack on Titan, Yuri Katsuki from Yuri on Ice, and Great Minister from Dragon Ball Super. I think the one that was the most rewarding to me at the time, and in terms of just like, I can't believe I'm here, was Kenichi, because it was my first role ever for Funimation. I've been working for ADV Films for about 5 years at that point. It was my first role ever for Funimation. It was the lead, it was the namesake of the show. It was 50 episodes long, so it was a 2-year contract of recording, which I was just like, I can't believe that's even happening. And on top of it, all of my martial arts masters in the show were played by Dragon Ball actors that I'd grown up listening to as a kid. And so it really was just the fanboy dream come true, like, holy crap, pinch me, this can't be real type thing. And to this day, it's still one of the shows that so many people come up to me and tell me, like, that it helped them through a really rough time, or it inspired them to, like, get physically fit, or to take up martial arts, or to just get stronger in some capacity, whether physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever, so that they could do the things they wanted to do. And it's just like, it's like, them telling me that is such a huge gift, and the fact that it just came from the fact that I got to live a dream, basically, is, I never know how to respond to those things. It's so humbling, and it's really cool. So like that, to me, like that's the character that has just kept on giving ever since I had it, and Funimation just lost the rights to it after over a decade, basically, of having it, and it sucks that we never got to bring over the rest of it, but it's still, to this day, I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for Kenichi. So that's probably one of my absolute favorites.
And can you do one more favor? Can you do an impression of Zen?
Zen's really hard because it's really just my normal voice. It's just, hey, what's up? So like, oh, Shirayuki, hi. I was just thinking I hadn't seen you today. Now, I have.
And suddenly ovaries explode.
How'd you feel how Yuri was comparing, like, he was being, for his Eros routine, how he thought of himself being a sexy cutlet bowl?
I'm a sexy four cutlet bowl femme fatale that enthralls men.
Sexy pork on the bowl, metal, enthralls me.
I love that because, and I talked about this briefly yesterday, I love the fact that he is man enough to say, I'm not this type of man. Because he has that whole idea of like, the story that, that Victor paints for him when he's describing the Eros routine is like, you are this, basically, I can't think of any other way to say it other than you are a sex idol, or a sex icon, basically. You're this guy who's just all sexual energy and charisma, and the story that he's telling with his Eros routine is about the turmoil and the passion and everything that comes with that existence, and the story of wooing some young, some female, and they have a night of passion, but then once it's all over, he moves on and he's, off to find his next experience or whatever, but he realizes that's not me. And he he couldn't believe it because that's not him, and because of that, it wasn't coming through in the routine. So he decides and realizes, I have to be the woman. I have to be the female in this thing. Like, I'm not going to change the moves, I'm just going to change the way I move. And he's all feminine grace and power and that idea of being the femme fatale, and the fact that gives him confidence and that gives him the power to actually go to do the routine and be in character. I was like, that is one of the most, I hate to say manly, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hate to say manly, but that's kind of the only word I can think of for it at this point, because to me, it's that willingness to not put your guard up and be like, no, I can't let go of this, of my masculinity. I can't let go of whatever and take and embrace femininity, because that would be weakness and that would be whatever, which is really just a fear-based mindset. And for him to be able to just say, no, I have to let go of all of this and embrace my femininity is insanely brave. It's a very courageous thing for someone to do, and yet another example of why I think that show is so important. Because I think one of the greatest questions that one of the creators was asked was, when does Yuri on Ice take place? And her answer was, it takes place in a world where no one cares who you love. And so that sort of freedom also allows for the freedom of letting go of, I guess, toxic masculinity is not necessarily the right word for it, but just unhelpful ideas of what masculinity is.
I liked how Yuri decided to be the woman in the story.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my favorite parts about Yuri.
Yeah. He embraces that femininity because he realizes that for him, that's where that feeling of confidence and power will come from. And that's very antithesis to a lot of the stuff that men are taught. That's the exact opposite of what a lot of men are taught. And so I think it was a very important and eye-opening thing for him to do that. It was such a simple idea, but the effects of it and the results of it are profoundly powerful. And I wish more people would
Made me wish my friend was like that. When we had Spear Week at school, he was too ashamed to wear pink at school because he was a senior.
Yeah.
It's like,
ever since Vegeta wore the pink shirt that said Badman on it, pink's been totally cool. Even before that, honestly. Actually, one of the I found a prime example of this. Just completely off topic, doesn't have to do with anything. But the fact that you just mentioned the fact, men wearing pink, and people have that reaction, I ain't wearing pink.
Dude,
so,
true man wear pink.
hang on. Here's the deal. There's a flower in Texas. It grows without water, without soil, on dead rocks and granite, and it grows the strongest when it's in those situations, and it is the brightest pink you have ever seen. And to me, it's just that's a symbol for feminism right there. That freaking flower is a symbol for feminism. It's just so, I love that. It's in nature, even nature, it's produces these very beautiful, what we consider to be feminine colors or whatever, but it's one of the toughest flowers in existence. It's so cool. Yes.
I have two questions and one personal request that I'd like to take care of after the panel.
Yeah.
What was it like working on Hakata Ramens?
Did anybody see Hakata Tonkatsu Ramens this season?
I loved it.
This year?
But you see, my anime club president told me, you need to watch this. And it's I marathoned the entire thing.
Yeah.
My God, I love your character.
Thank you. I love him too. He's. I don't get very. Only in the last couple of years, since Yuri actually, which is weird. Actually, no, it wasn't because of Yuri. I was recording another show at the same time I was doing Yuri called Drifters. Did anybody see Drifters?
Actually, that was my next question.
Yeah, I played Toyohisa. He's the lead character in that show, and so to go from hi, I'm Yuri Katsuki, a certified skater for the JSF, to
You have a good head on your shoulders. I think I'll take it.
Everything is just and the dude's basically a Klingon.
Yeah.
Like, it's all about bloodlust and honor and power and stuff like that. And so to play that character at the same time I'm playing Yuri on Ice, that was a trip. But ever since I played that character, and like Kino-san, Psychopaths and stuff, people have started to take, and then Tokoyami, a lot of the directors started to take notice that I actually have a deep range.
Yeah.
It's like, I've only been able to go this low since you hired me. It's like since 2006, guys, come on. But they're starting to use me for a lot more just bro characters, which I don't get to play a very lot of. So like getting to play Bamba was ridiculously fun because he's just a dude. If he's not a stoner, that is a waste of a stoner character.
I agree.
Like, it's
the guy
just
who cross dresses, and it's like I look at him, and it's like if you think about it from an actor's standpoint, we have Yuri living with the guy who plays Victor's coach. And then
it was Yakov, yeah. That's right, I forgot he played Yakov and he's playing this cross-dresser and doing the thing with me. I love it.
And then we have like Kinoza and Kogami as Toyohisa.
And that's the thing too, for those hearing that, you would never know listening to the two Tonkatsu Ramens that Damon, it's Damon Mills. Damon Mills who plays, oh my god, and what's his name in...
Yakov.
No, in Ramens.
I actually have it up on my...
Thank you.
Lin Jingmei.
Lin. Yeah, we just call him Lin. You would never know it to hear him because Lin not necessarily sounds feminine, but he is a cross-dress. He's this young boy that just looks like a girl, and but he's very angry. So like he doesn't have that he doesn't do like the traditional femboy type, archetype or whatever. He cross-dresses just because it feels good. It's just comfortable.
Yeah.
But he's pissed. It's like hell in high heels, basically. He just sounds like a young boy, or it could actually sound kind of feminine. You would never know that he also plays Yakov. Like it's just such a different voice for him. Like, it's ridiculous. That huge range is impressive.
And then I know you grew up as a Dragon Ball fan. What's it like now finally getting the chance to be in Dragon Ball?
Dream come true. Again, it's another one of those instances of like, and not only that, but now it's on Dragon Ball primetime TV. Like by the time my first real big episode airs, it will be on primetime TV.
And what do you think about the Abridged series for Dragon Ball?
I loved the DBZ Abridged series.
And like the Hellsing Abridged.
Yeah, I mean the team. I know